Haven't touched this in a bit. Thought that focusing on the road until I stopped thinking would help. Didn't really know why I thought that was a good idea, because it clearly didn't work. Haven't had a drop of alcohol in months, if it even affects me. Maybe it does, or maybe I'm just pretending it does. I really can't tell anymore. I've been thinking about Julie a lot. The worst thing the road does is give you time to reflect on everything that has happened so far. I've seen some people choose to go insane and eventually become one of those things on the road rather than face themselves. I'm a bit ashamed to confess I've thought about doing that before, hoping if I did turn, that I would finally be free. But after seeing someone turn firsthand, I'm not sure if I'd risk it now. It happened when Julie was with me. She was in her car, following me as we started off slowly driving down the road. She was scared at first. I don't blame her, as I was too when I first ended up here. Unlike me, however, she quickly started to acclimate to her situation. In the end, there is no point speeding or going slow on the road. There is no end to it, after all. We did, however, have friendly races here and there on the road to pass the time, after she got more comfortable down here. It was enjoyable, until she almost hit a truck blocking most of the road. She was more cautious after that. I got a bad feeling as soon as I saw it. The truck in question seemed purposefully parked in a way that evoked a sense of danger. I had heard stories before of groups making traps in order to rob and kidnap people on isolated stretches of road before, but that was in the living world. Here, I didn't know what was in store for us. Julie started getting out of her vehicle when I flicked my high beams, signaling her to stop before quietly calling out my open window. "No, stay inside, lock the door and wait for me." I hopped out of my car quietly, hoisting Shane's rifle and aimed it ahead of me. I only had 3 more bullets left, including the one in the chamber. If his death taught me anything useful, it was that violence could trickle its way down to here still. I heard strange sounds from behind the truck, weak groaning that changed in pitch, combined with wet crunching and squelching. I crawled onto the unnaturally cold tar and under the back of the truck to see what awaited us on the other side. It was one of those dark things, similar to the one that took Shane, tearing away strips of skin and flesh from the chest of a large trucker. The thing seemed far too occupied to notice us. Then again, it didn't look like it had ears either. Just a slick, oily form over an animalistic body. It dripped dark gunk from its teeth into the open wounds, the dark color spreading across the trucker's body as his groaning stopped, his head falling and turning to me, as his eyes faded looking into mine. I quickly crawled back the way I came, facing the dead man the whole time. I couldn't look away. I've seen death before on the road, but this was different. His eyes became darker as the dark, oily substance ebbed into his veins, his body seeming to twitch as I finally crawled back onto the safe side of the truck. I quickly approached Julie's sedan, signaling her to unlock her door, my voice still low as I relayed my findings to her. "I'm going to be blunt with you. There's a thing on the other side of that truck, and it will likely hurt us once it's finished up with what it's doing. We can't turn around, so our only options is to move the truck, not knowing if the keys are still in the ignition, and giving it easy access to us as we get back in our cars before it catches us. That, or we could try to drive around the truck in my ute, but that means leaving your car behind." Julie looked down for a moment before looking up at me, then towards Shane's rifle. "Have you shot one of those things before?" she asked. I wasn't sure how to answer her. I had the chance to, but I chose against it in the heat of the moment. I only have 3 bullets, possibly the only 3 bullets on the entire road. Did I really want to risk using one on something that might not react to it? Not yet, but if worse comes to worse, I will. This is our only source of protection, so we need to use it sparingly. The words came out cold and bleak. She looked towards the truck and closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. "Did you check if we can get around the truck before?" "There's a bit of ground on either side further out. I think it just drops. Let me check first." I turned around and grabbed Shane's light from my passenger side door. I turned it on. the light dissipating only a few meters away. But it was enough to see that there was a small gap between the rear of the truck and the abyss next to it. I turn and give Julie a thumbs up, where she grabbed a few things from her glove box and hopped in my ute. We hop in quietly, my foot on the clutch, another just above the accelerator, a hand on the wheel, and another ready to start the engine. "Ready?" I asked quietly, to which she silently nodded. The engine roared to life. I immediately, yet ever so carefully, drove off the road into a small dirt bank. The gap between the truck's rear and the edge of the void was thin, but I managed to thread the needle as loose rocks fell silently off the world's edge. I was so focused on the left mirror that I didn't see the dark thing charge at us and hit the driver's side door with force, pushing us closer to the edge as half of the front tire hung over the sheer drop. Julie screamed at the top of her lungs, seeing the thing for the first time as its bright eyes glowed bestially, contrasting with its dark appearance. It let out an otherworldly howl as another scratched at the bonnet, the trucker's clothes melting into the dark, oily skin until all reminders of his humanity was absorbed. I put all my weight on the accelerator as the thing in front of us slipped under the front bumper and out of view, the other being left behind near the truck's rear as the tires rolled over the thing now beneath us. The bump shook the ute violently as a sloppy crack shattered out into the ethereal hue. I picked up speed before ramping back onto the road, the ute bouncing on the flat tar before we sped off, leaving her sedan behind. It took a while for us to get over what had happened. We drove in silence for a while until she regained herself. She was still shaking and breathing heavily as she steeled herself from a panic attack. "That was one of the animals you were talking about before, wasn't it?" she asked. "I'm afraid it was, ma'am." "My name is Julie. I don't like being called ma'am," she replied, as she wore an expression I couldn't quite describe. "Well, Julie, I'm afraid there's a lot out here you won't like." The moment lingered for far too long, as the silence between us became deafening. She was nothing him, but I was still cautious, even when there was no need. "I'm John. I didn't tell you before because I wasn't expecting you to stick around." I wasn't equipped to console or hold conversations with women. My skills have become rusty after being divorced for so many years, and small talk wasn't going to cut it on the road. "How long have you been here, John?" she questioned as she picked up the flashlight I used, looking at it briefly before sitting it back down. "I think about 2 years now, though I don't like keeping track," I replied. She thought about what she would ask for a while, as I kept my eyes on the living roadkill ahead of us. The reanimated corpses of decaying kangaroos hopping along the road. Without the ability to process what has happened to them, they go about as if everything was normal. She noticed them too, as her horrified expression filled the mirror above my head. "What do you think is at the end of the road?" she asked quietly. "I'm not sure. It isn't home, though." We drove quietly for a while, occasionally asking questions about how we got here. She used to work for this observatory in the mountains as a scientist. I told her I used to be a father before my ex-wife took the kids, leading me into working my guts out just to make ends meet. It's a good thing we found someone else parked on the side of the road before she asked any more questions. We parked up beside it, as I asked her to stay inside. But before I could hop out of the vehicle, a tall, skinny man banged on the driver's side door. "Help me, there's something out here." His screams were muffled by the glass. I didn't want this guy in my car, so I reached around and grabbed the rifle. The man quickly backed away to what I assumed was his car. "Don't shoot, I need help. Something came out of the dark. I can't drive, please." His voice, which was once a loud, angry haggle, was now reduced to a pitiful murmur. "Please, mister, I can't see that thing again, that pig-headed thing." "It's all right, mate, just breathe." I sit the rifle up in my seat as I close the door, Julie locking it right after. "Look, I'll check out your car, see if I can do something about it. Then I'll be on my way." He thanked me endlessly as I circled his car to see what the damage was. I assumed one of the things out here attacked him, just like us. However, his car was much worse for wear. Huge gouges in the metal were clawed on the driver's side door, along with the front right tire being flat. "Do you have a spare in the back?" I asked, to which he returned a confused look. Spare? I sighed and walked around to the back of his car. I put my hand on the handle to the boot as he cried out, "Don't look in there." I pulled the door up. Inside was a mess of dirty magazines, used tissues, and things I wish I didn't see. I tried my best to ignore it all as I pulled up the floor of the trunk to reveal a spare tire along with a jack underneath. He looked away embarrassed as I pulled both out. "I'm going to change your tire, then we will go our separate ways. Deal?" He nodded ashamedly as I got to work, jacking up his car and removing the flat. By the time I was finishing up, the tall guy rummaged around his car and gave me $20. "Here, for your troubles," he stammered. "Thanks, but what exactly am I going to do with this?" "Oh, he murmured, before putting his hands in his pockets and quickly getting into his car. "Sorry and thank you once again," he said as he drove off. I looked up to see Julie giggling at the interaction before she unlocked the driver's side door. Her giggle broke into a laugh, and I have to admit, I found the situation pretty funny as well. That was one of the few times I genuinely smiled on the road. "How much did he give you?" she chuckled. $20, not even enough for a slab. I chortled. "Only $20? Bit stingy, don't you think?" "I reckon so, not like it matters much." The moment passed, and she remembered that it really didn't matter. There was nothing to buy down here, nothing to sell. The closest you'll get is a barter for one valuable item for another. The reality of the situation began to weigh on her once more, though this time I tried to lighten her up again. "Maybe we'll find a shop down here. I've seen stranger things on the road before." She let out a short laugh as a weak smile formed on her lips. "Yeah, maybe," she said. We drove on the road for a while longer, nothing happening and no sounds made except for the engine. Julie shifted with her hands as she looked out the window into the infinite darkness. "Can we get out?" she asked somberly. "I wish we could. I've looked for a way out for a while now. Had a guy who held me hostage try and find a way out too. No such luck there." Her crying slowed as her head tilted towards me. "You were held hostage?" she inquired. "Afraid so, but I got out okay. He was the only man I knew who had survived the longest down here. That was until one of those things got to him." The way she looked at me reminded me of my ex. I could instantly tell from that look alone that she thought I was lying. "Did you kill him?" The words came out coldly, and it felt like they pierced me as she stared into my soul. Her face drained and filled with fear. I stammered, before she interrupted, sounding angrier now. "Did you kill him?" she hollered. She looked like she was climbing out of her seat. "For fuck's sake, no I didn't. But I wish I did." She backed away as I slowed down the ute to a stop, resting my head on the wheel as I thought about every restless night around him. The threat of being shot at any given moment. The fear of being forced into strange buildings in the search for something that only mattered to him. All these thoughts brought tears to my eyes, tears that have been saved up over countless months. I wish I did, but I didn't. I could have shot him in the head, but I shot his side. I let whatever was grabbing him take him away to finish the job that I couldn't. I rested my head for a long while, until the tears dried so I could face her again. I took his gun and his torch. I left the rest with him. I wanted to be free of him. Is that so much to ask? God, no, not at all. I saw the flashlight with his name and the gun. I was worried that I wouldn't be safe. She sniffled and began to tear up, letting them run down her face, letting me see them fall onto her lap. I'd never do anything like that to you. I want to live, and I want to keep you safe. Her nose began to run as her eyes became red. I reached into my pocket for my clean handkerchief that one of my sons got for me, handing it to her as she looked at it, then up at me. "Here." I held it out onto my open palm, as she grabbed it gently and used it to blow her nose and clear her face. "You can keep it." "Thanks," she said gently. I started the engine once more, and we were back on the road as if nothing happened. Such is life down here. We warmed up to each other after that, talking more openly about what we missed about the living world, about our past relationships, our hobbies and favorite movies. She was a big fan of Cronenberg, which surprised me as I grew up watching Scanners and The Fly in my teen years. We were getting into our favorite scenes when something caught our eyes on the side of the road. Standing between the tar and the dirt stood a well-dressed man holding his arm out. A hitchhiker all the way out here in the dark, endless expanse of road. I pulled over and wound the window down. He had a dark suit on, along with a yellow scarf and an old-fashioned bowler hat atop grayed hair. He must have been in his late 80s to early 90s. I still wonder what he was doing out there. "Can I help you?" I asked, as he nodded. He held a walking stick that he gripped firmly in his dark gloved hands. "I'd like you to drop me off at the bend, please." His voice was coarse and frail, with the faintest German accent. This was the first time I was genuinely taken aback by someone on the road. I passed the bend almost a year ago. At that point, I remembered that it was nothing but a gate leading to another abyss. "I'm sorry, that's pretty far back there. I passed it about a year ago," I replied, to which he smiled warmly. "Oh good, that means it's not too far up ahead." He reached out his gloved hand. "May you take me there, please?" I looked over at Julie, who gave me a concerned look. You must always fear old men in places where men die young. But what could he do? I asked Julie if she could sit in the back for a bit. She begrudgingly accepted after I gave her the rifle for safekeeping. The old man stumbled into the front seat and put his hands on his lap. He sat that way for a long while, and any time we tried to talk to him, he would only give us a warm smile and remained silent. Nothing more, nothing less. He was right, though, as the familiar fence and gate came into view in front of us. Never had I seen the same place twice before picking up the hitchhiker. I couldn't have made a circle, if I remember right. I saw an old gas station before reaching the bed. I remember searching through it, running into one of the things and sneaking away, driving for a long while and coming across the bend. Maybe I missed it on the way over. The old man adjusted himself, opening the door and slowly hopping out. "Thank you both, and good luck on your journey." He tipped his bowler hat at us and started shambling towards the fence on the edge of nothingness. He opened the gate, and although it was dark, I could swear it looked like he was waving to someone out in the abyss. I was waiting for him to fall, only to see him walking on an invisible path, strolling on thin air until my flashlight couldn't reach him anymore. He was gone. Julie got back into the front seat, and we rode in silence for a while before I broke it. I had something on my mind that I needed to ask her. "Did you see a gas station on your left while we had him in the car?" She took a while to respond, as she visibly sifted through her recollection of the mostly barren and uninteresting view. "I don't think so. You said that fence was pretty far back before as well. Have you passed it before?" she queried. "I have, ages ago. It's the first place that has reappeared for me. I wasn't sure if we made a loop or not." We both processed the weight of this new revelation. What else were we going to see again? In fact, it had been a while since we saw any buildings like the station I searched. I was wondering how long it was going to take before we came across one to explore and give us a break from driving. The first structure we both ran into meant a lot more to her than it did me. It was a few dozen hours before we came across a large, rusted water tower. I wouldn't have even noticed it if Julie didn't mention anything. "Stop the car," she said abruptly. "Pardon?" "Stop the car!" she yelled, and I quickly pulled the handbrake, slowing the ute to a screeching halt. Before I could even ask what was wrong, she hopped out of the passenger seat, swinging the door and storming off towards the shrouded tower. I followed her as she quickly moved through the lifeless grass and weeds as I tailed her. Eventually, she fell to her knees before it, almost in an act of worship, before sobbing into her hands. I looked up, seeing the ghostly shadows of people suspended in the air, their limbs flailing in a single moment of time, as if they were caught in freefall just before hitting the ground. My friend, my best friend from school, it was here that she spoke softly between sobs. I didn't want to leave her out here on her own, but I also wanted to give her space. I settled on sitting on the exposed dirt beneath me as she cried her heart out. It must have been hours before the well ran dry, and even then, it was hard to convince her to keep moving. I can't understand. You said that it was only people on the road who end up here. Why would that be in here? I sat for a while, mulling the question over. Even I didn't really know why. It was there while holding his light that I swore I could hear his voice echo in my ear. Do these look familiar to you? I murmured dryly. I think some of our lives, they leak in here sometimes. That servo I mentioned finding in here, I visited it when I was a kid. It seemed so familiar, I thought it was just a coincidence how recognizable it was. Maybe it was that servo. She looked at me through red, puffy eyes. I think it was then she realized how ignorant I was of this place. Before that, she must have looked up to me for my knowledge and experience. To her, I was a survivor that knew the ins and outs of the road. Sure, there were questions I couldn't answer for her, but I think it was that moment, that singular moment beneath the rusted tower, that she realized I was as unaware of this world as she was. She came back with me to the ute, and we kept going. That's all we could do in the end. There were still good moments here and there, such as the time we came across a guy parked on the right-hand lane. I wound down the window and yelled out, "You can't park there, mate." She rolled her eyes at me, but she couldn't hide the tiny, almost imperceivable smile on her lips. Though we had this weight on us that didn't seem to leave us. I wouldn't say it was guilt, more like dread. We were so unaware of what was in store for us. I thought I was going insane when I saw one of the houses Shane forced me to search on the side of the road. Looked like one of the first ones we visited too. Since I couldn't pull a U-bolt, I needed to make a decision. Either I pulled over now, or I keep going. Julie looked out and watched as it slowly faded away into the dark behind us. "Why didn't you stop? There might have been a slab in there," she stated softly. "Nothing in there," I replied bluntly. If she was taken aback, she didn't give me any signs of it. Though maybe she was just getting better at hiding it. "I've already checked there before. Hopefully we find something new up ahead." I was really hoping it was a one-off. I was thinking that surely it was somewhere I visited when I was alive that was back in here, that only resembled the place Shane and I searched years ago. I brushed it off as best I could, asking Julie if she had any stories to clear my head. She was halfway through telling me of this time, a guy that was found half dead in a clearing at work when we passed by another house. I almost drove off the road when I saw it. There was no doubt about it. We were driving past the same houses we looted. This one in particular was the very one I left Shane for dead so long ago. My mind became a storm of countless thoughts. How are these still here? Aren't these locations based on the real world? Why would locations we visited in this place specifically be brought back like this? I startled Julie as I stopped the car. Suddenly, she looked out to the house and back at me. That instant of uncertainty, now a wave of excitement as she unbuckled her seatbelt. I put a hand on her shoulder. For a moment, I considered telling her the truth. Things would have ended up differently if I did. Instead, I lied to her. I needed to know what was inside. "You stay behind me. I'm going in first. When I give you the all clear, only then can you follow me. I've had those things wander in while searching before." She nodded and waited for me to grab his rifle and flashlight before exiting the ute. I debated on locking it or not and ultimately chose to lock it. Another decision that would come back to bite me later. We wandered inside, and I still remember every detail. The rifle slung over my shoulder, the flashlight revealing the porch, and Julie cautiously but readily following my lead as I opened the door to the house of bad memories.